In this video, we'll be going over the features that have been added to Foundation to help you comply with the employer mandate of the Affordable Care Act. We'll go into a little more detail throughout the video, but at its most basic level, the employer mandate says that applicable large employers, or ALEs, must offer affordable health coverage to their full-time employees and their dependent children, or potentially be subject to penalties. Additionally, there are some new IRS reporting requirements under the ACA, but we will not be covering those during this video. Those requirements are discussed in a separate video. Because the employer mandate only applies to ALEs, the first question to answer as an employer is, am I an applicable large employer? An employer is an ALE for a given year if they averaged 50 or more full-time or full-time equivalent employees per month during the previous calendar year. I know that's a bit to take in, but the good news is we do have a report now that will help you make this ALE status determination. If you go to your payroll reports, under the Affordable Care Act section, there is a new monthly hours report. Now, this report has pretty simple criteria, as you can see. First, it just asks you which year to run it for, if you want the detail or summary format, if you want to include hours from history adjustments or ACA hours adjustments, and whether you want to show projected hours for months that have not yet passed. For right now, I'm going to run it as is. And you'll see that it's just a basic list of your employees, and then for each month, how many hours they had, and then finally an overall average for each employee. You'll notice it's not December yet, so I have 0 hours throughout December. If I come back to my criteria, add the projected hours. If you're running with the projected hours, you can use average hours, the prior year's hours, or use the prior year's hours. If none exist, use the average. For now, I'm just going to use the average. And when I run the report, you'll see that I now have hours in December, which updated my averages. If you scroll all the way down to the very bottom, this is where you get the information we're really after for the ALE status determination. First, you get the line full-time employees, which simply gives you the total number of employees in each month that were full-time. Under the ACA, full-time is reached by working more than 130 hours in a month. Next, you have full-time equivalent employees. This is the hours of your non-full-time people divided by 120. So basically, they just want to know how many full-time people would have been needed to work the hours that the non-full-time people worked. And then finally, you total those two numbers up to get your total full-time employee count for each individual month and average them out over the year. This gives you your ALE status determination number. Again, the threshold for being considered an ALE is 50. If this is greater than 50, then of course you are an ALE. There are a few things I would like to mention on this report. The first has to do with the message that you get right at the top of the report, and that has to do with salary employees. If you have salary employees that receive pay but do not have any hours, hours will be assigned to them based on the employment status from the employee record. However, the net effect here is that they will always be considered at least one, whether that's a full-time employee or a full-time equivalent employee. So if you have part-time salary people, you will need to start tracking their hours accurately with time cards using the salary proration feature. Otherwise, they'll always count as one against your 50 in the overall average. Next, there is a seasonal work exception that might apply. If the report detects that the seasonal exception may apply to your company, it will give you an alert on the screen here on the report that will tell you to check with your legal or benefits advisors to see if that exception may truly apply to you. If it does apply, it basically allows you to exclude seasonal workers from the count, which might bring you under the 50 threshold. Finally, I want to talk about the concept of aggregated ALEs. If you're running multiple companies that share common ownership or are otherwise related, the IRS requires you to group those employees together for purposes of determining whether you're an ALE. So if you are running multiple companies in Foundation, you will need to run this report for each company and then kind of combine the results to get your total number. There is currently no cross-company reporting available. Once you have determined whether you're an ALE, the next step is determining which employees are full-time and should be offered health coverage. The important thing to understand is that the method of determining if you're an ALE is different from the method you'll use for determining if an individual is full-time. The IRS allows for one of two methods of determining an employee's full-time status, the monthly method and the look-back method. Under the monthly measurement method, you determine an employee's status month by month. Foundation does not have any features specifically designed for this, but this monthly hours report can be very helpful in trying to determine whether someone will be full-time for a month. Whether the monthly measurement method will be a good option for you will really come down to how reliably you can predict your employees' hours on a month-by-month basis. If it's fairly predictable, it may be a good option for you. If your hours tend to vary, you may be better served by the look-back method. The look-back measurement method, as its name implies, allows you to look back at a prior period of time to determine an employee's status. Foundation has the setup and several reports based around this method. The setup for the look-back measurement method is completed on the control file, under payroll, on the ACA tab. Before we go through how to set up a measurement group, I would like to use this example group to explain the look-back measurement method a little better. Under the look-back measurement method, you will have three distinct periods of time: the measurement period, the admin period, and the stability period. The measurement period is a period of up to 12 months where you will look back at an employee's hours and determine their full-time status based on the monthly average during that time. Once the measurement period ends, you start your admin period. This is an optional period of time of up to 90 days that allows you to run the reports, fill out forms, do the administrative work involved in offering health coverage. After the administrative period ends, you go into your stability period. This is the period of time where the employee's status is applied to them. So, during the measurement period, if they're determined to be full-time, then during the following stability period, you treat them as full-time, even if they have a reduction in hours. One thing you'll notice on the graph here is that this is not a one-time measurement. So once your first measurement period ends, which is reflected in the red, you then launch into your next one immediately. Same thing with the stability periods. As soon as one ends, the next one begins. Okay, with that little bit of background, let's talk about the setup. Our primary goal with the available setup was to simplify it as much as we possibly could. To that end, the options are not quite as flexible as the law actually allows. For the sake of simplicity, we tried to limit the options to those that we expect a large majority of employers to use. I do have an example group here. However, there will not be a group here by default when you're setting this up for the first time. To add a new group, it is a simple right-click and add, where you then give it a group and a description. From there, you are then looking at the actual setup. First, you are able to signify that this is the group that should default into all new employees. You then tell it when you want your stability period to start. Often this will tie out to whenever your healthcare plan year starts, but that is not necessarily the case. You then tell it how long you want your measurement period to be. This is a spot where we simplified. Technically, you're allowed to do anywhere between 3 and 12 months. We limited it to just 6, 9, and 12. You are then able to specify your admin period. Again, that's up to 90 days. And that is the basic setup for your ongoing measurement periods. New hires are treated a little bit differently. That is the available setup on the right-hand side under initial measurement period. The first thing to understand about new hires is that if you can reasonably expect a new employee to be a full-time employee based on the facts you have available when you hire them, then you should treat them as full-time right away. However, if you can't make that determination, you're allowed to use what is called an initial measurement period. It's all very similar to the ongoing one, but each new hire will have their own initial measurement period. For the initial measurement period, you tell it when you want the measurement to start, and you have two options. One is on the date that the employee actually starts, or you can start it on the first day of the month after they start. And this allows you to group together employees that you hire throughout the month. You then tell it how long you want your measurement period to be, and you then tell it how long you want your admin period to be. Technically, this can be up to 90 days as well. However, to simplify things, we limited it to just 1 month plus partial or 2 month plus partial. The partial would be if the employee started mid-month. If you pick 12 months, it will force you to 1 month plus partial. This is due to an additional rule where you have to offer coverage by the end of the 13th month after an employee starts. If we did 12 months and allowed 2 months, that would take you beyond that allowed threshold. The final option is one you should be careful with, the current employees. If you check this box, when you click OK to save the control file, it will assign that selected measurement group to all employees that do not currently have a measurement group. The thing to be careful with there is that once an employee is assigned to a measurement group, it's not simple to change them. So be careful with that and be sure that you really want to assign everybody to it. You will notice that Foundation will allow you to add as many measurement groups as you would like for whatever reason. However, be aware that under the law there are only 4 different scenarios in which you're allowed to set up different groups. The first is union versus non-union employees, employees that are in different unions, hourly employees versus salary employees, or employees that primarily work in different states. Again, those are the allowed splits of groups, but you are under no obligation to do any more than one group. And bear in mind, the more groups you do, the more tracking you will need to do. So for simplicity's sake, it may be best to just do one group. Once you have your groups created, you can save them, and then the next step is to assign the employees to each group on the employee record. So if I open up the employee record, you will see that there is a new ACA Other tab. On this tab is where you assign the employee to the group they belong to. You'll also notice that there is an ACA exempt checkbox. There's a few various reasons someone might be exempt. This is just a catch-all. You will need to check with your legal or benefits advisors to verify that it's allowable to check that box for an individual. If you save the employee, if you then go back into the employee, you will see that that employee now has the chart that you saw on the control file as well. If you have someone that fell into the initial measurement period, you'll see that their chart will look a little differently. I'm going to open up a new employee, and you'll see that his chart looks a lot different. You can see that he has his own initial line, and this is his initial measurement period, his initial admin, and his initial stability. Once he catches up to everybody else that is in the ongoing measurement, he'll start being measured in the ongoing measurement, and his chart will start to look like everybody else's. So the control file measurement group setup and assigning those groups to the employees is really the bulk of the ACA setup that you need to do. A couple other minor things that you may need to look at depending on your circumstances is the earn code record now has a flag of whether you want to include those hours in ACA reports. Again, check with your legal or benefits advisors. There are very few reasons why hours would not be included, but if you do need to do that, you can just uncheck this box and those hours will be excluded. The other new field that you may need to fill out depending on your circumstances is on the job maintenance record. On the AR tab, there is a new foreign checkbox. Under the ACA, hours that are worked outside of the United States do not count as hours, so this is the way to signify that a job is entirely taking place outside of the US. The last thing I want to look at before we talk about the reports is in payroll maintenance, there is a new ACA hours adjustment worksheet. What this worksheet allows is for a given year, a quick and easy way to modify the hours of all your employees. The intended purpose of this is for those of you going live in the middle of the year. This allows you to quickly and easily transport the hours over from your previous system into Foundation so that you can make use of the ACA reports. Of course, you're welcome to use this for any purpose, but it is always better to have the accurate hourly time cards. If you do want to make use of this, it is very easy. It gives you for each employee the hours that Foundation currently thinks they had, and then allows you to either put in an adjustment. So if you know it should have been 100 hours higher, you can put in 100, or if you just know that, no, this should have been 350, you can put that in and it will figure out whatever the adjustment should be. Once you complete that and you're happy with it and you want it to be included in your ACA reports, you can just check the little box there, click OK to save it, and then it will start showing up in your ACA reports. Under the payroll reports, there is a new Affordable Care Act section. This houses all of the ACA related reports. The first report I want to look at is the Employee Hours Tracking Report. This report will tie out to your measurement periods. You'll notice there is no date range. The date range will come from whatever your measurement group definition was. You can run it for only a certain measurement group, certain employees. You have the option of whether you want to include employees that have already reached full-time status, and you can choose to include only initial measurement periods, only ongoing measurement periods, or both. And then finally you have some different sort options that you can play with. When I run the report, you'll see that it gives me a list of my employees, what group they're in, what the measurement group date ranges are, how many hours they've worked so far, what that averages out to on a monthly basis, how many months are left in the measurement period, and then how many projected hours will they work based on the average hours per month times the remaining months. Finally, it tells you how many more hours that person would need to work to be considered full-time, and then it will tell you if they're projecting currently to be full-time or part-time. I want to scroll down and draw your attention quickly to the employees down here that say hourly initial. These are the employees that are in an initial measurement period. You'll notice that Miguel here is actually on the report twice. This is not a bug. This is because he is in here for his initial measurement period and for the ongoing measurement period. So you can see how one employee might be in both at one time. The next report I want to look at is the admin period summary. Again, you'll notice there are no date ranges, again, coming from the measurement group setup. Very similar criteria. This one gives you the option of whether or not you want to include part-time people. This report shows you all your employees, what their previous status was, what their new status was based on the most recent measurement period, and whether that status has changed. It will also tell you when this employee's admin period runs. So for these employees, I'm looking at October 3rd through December 31st. So this is telling me that all of my full-time people on this report, I know that I need to make an offer of coverage to them by 12/31. Finally, I want to look at the Measured Employee Status Report. This will tie out to your stability period. So this report will tell you what status does each employee have based on the stability period that they're currently in. So you can see list of employees, what the measurement period average hours were, and what status that ties out to, and then it tells you when the stability period ends and begins. In this case, you'll notice that the employees are on here twice. This is actually because I have one stability period that is currently wrapping up, and then it's showing me the upcoming one based on the active admin period. So again, you may potentially see scenarios where one employee will be on the report twice. It is not a bug, it is just a feature. And that concludes the overview of the new features that have been added to Foundation to help you in complying with the employer mandate of the Affordable Care Act. If you do have any questions about how to do any of this setup in Foundation or need any refreshers on what the reports are telling you, please do not hesitate to contact our support department.